you can develop something brand new by learning from legacy, right? So I don't necessarily think that there's just, I don't necessarily think that you can completely separate the two, right? So even take something like buy now pay later, right? Like buy now pay later theoretically has existed since the 1980s, right? It was a layaway program, right? And it was all about how you bring that physical layaway program into the digital world, right? That's how legacy works. That's how legacy works both of you, right? The advancements don't necessarily have to be leaps and bounds in advance. They can sometimes just be.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean legacy as in we are going to do exactly what they did 10, 15, 20 years ago. You're using principles of the past to innovate moving forward.
Absolutely.
Okay, being in a telephone company doesn't mean you still have to provide lines, you have to still have communication. But innovation, I guess in a telco has to be harder because you have to still honor legacy moving forward.
That's absolutely right, and you have to be in tune with the advancement in technology. If you look at the topic that we're discussing today, actually, the key reason why, the banks existed forever, right? So, and they can do this. They could have done that, of course. But the key reason why it has come to a different stream of financial services now is because of advancement in AI and machine learning. And that revolution has happened in the last 5 years. So the banks could even do it today, but they have been very slow in adopting those kind of technologies. And companies like ours who offer AI and machine learning solutions to large enterprises, and we have seen the advancement in the technology in the last 5 years.
Yeah, but I'm going to challenge this. I do not like dealing with my bank when it comes to banking. I hate it. Because I think they're stuck in a very certain mindset of how they wanted to do things. Where if I use Stripe or in the States they call Venmo or PayPal, they're much more progressive in the way they're thinking.
That's exactly what I was saying. So even the way we think, in the last 10, 15 years is different than what our parents used to think. Right? So the amount of trust that they had on their bank is much higher than what I have in my life, right? So the way I think is different, and the technology that is available today has created that mindset in me to try out these kind of services from people other than the bank.
Real quick, before you jump back, I have to say I think Africa as an investment opportunity is probably one of the most exciting opportunities because there really is a legacy out there. You can create almost anything and test it right away.
So as opposed to my two colleagues, the average solution is what you call top-down innovation. We believe in bottom-up, right? So bottom-up is where there's nothing when you create something entirely new. So for example, mobile money, the reason it worked in Africa is that it started in Africa is that in Africa they don't have a credit system, so credit and debit cards don't work. They never existed. But when the phone system was built in Africa, it was built with a prepaid mindset, which is that before you talk on the phone, you gotta put airtime on it. You gotta take money and let it everything onto the phone. And as you said, in 2007, Safaricom, one of the mobile operators from Kenya, decided that if you have that value, you can transfer it to electronic currency. So they came up with something called M-Pesa, which is mobile money, which is essentially how most Africans transact online. So that is very contrary to what you said. I'm not saying yours is not correct. You're saying that this is innovation that is bottom up. It has no legacy. It builds from the top up.
Yeah, but Safaricom owns M-Pesa now. 100%.
Well, they're in the process of not integrating it because now Safaricom is the banks ask the question: are you a telco or are you a bank? Because in principle, what you need is taking deposits. Taking airtime and deposits. So the question now becomes: for you, a banker, your competitor is on the other bank. It's the telcos. Because the telcos are taking deposits. They can look into that.
I think you left San Francisco. You just moved out. You said a couple of months, 7 months ago, right? You came here because you can move faster because there's so much more opportunity, right? Competition's less out here too.
Absolutely. But it's not necessarily about the competition. Sorry, it's not necessarily about the competition, right? Yes, you absolutely can move faster here. There is a whole lot of opportunity because fact is some of the legacy systems out here are a little outdated. You know, I mean, yeah, let's take San Francisco, right? In San Francisco, the concept of money exists on your phone. I never carried a wallet when I walked around San Francisco. The idea of having cash, like that cash is the most outdated thing that you get, the most outdated technology that you have out in San Francisco. So far.
But yeah, before that, in the US, it was that your credit, your debit card,
Right.
the money
So
side. The money moving the phone came to Africa.
Absolutely, right. Like, but the idea of basically your phone being everything, if your phone became your wallet, the ability to be able to move money around, the ability to be able to pay something, right? We had the vendors on the street who would accept a tap and go, right? Like it doesn't even need to be a large merchant. The idea of cash became so outdated that you as a restaurant had to advertise if you were casual, and you had to put it everywhere saying that if you want to come use us, you have to bring cash. You have to remind people to bring cash. Otherwise, people are
And that's old now. That's an old idea.
it's a completely old idea, but like the innovation that we're talking about, what's interesting to as to what you said, right, about telco becoming effectively your bank, right? I would argue that there's still a certain amount of legacy there because with our company, what we're doing, BNPL is the first phase, right? Where we're going next are going to be virtual cards, right? Where we're going next is the idea that your phone is able to generate a card number and allow you to do a transaction offline or online.
So what happens with the gatekeepers that are out there? Okay? Because now the gatekeepers become almost the roadblocks. For example, Apple charges an exorbitant rate to apps that are collecting money throughout their platform. Phone companies do the same thing. So the gatekeepers, or the innovators, are actually the roadblocks. So what happens now?
Well, basically, my two colleagues said, they either have to innovate or they'll be out innovated. So, for example, if you now take the telcos, they actually are ready to be disrupted because now they have become like the bank. They change so much fee. I transfer money to you, I have to change the fee. I put money here. So now, what you're going to see, the biggest innovation that is coming out is peer-to-peer lending or peer-to-peer payment. So now, that circumvents the telco, right? Because at the end of the day, the consumer has choice and innovation is an edge. And guess what that edge is? It's your phone now. You know, people can build incredible technology that the phone talk to each other. And so we're going to see another, quantum leap where you now put machine learning and you put all these new technologies, blockchain, and now people can transact directly. So in principle, very soon, I'm sorry to say that, we'll have telcos, but we'll be transacting around. We'll have banks, but we'll be transacting around because the rent-seeking mentality is a mentality of the past.
Are you saying telcos become, please don't take it wrong, dumb pipe?
Well, they have to be smart. You know, behind you, I agree with you that they have to use the edge. They have to go to the edge and start innovating. And if they don't do it, then the company that I do it will take them over. Because these new child, they're very nimble, right? They innovate very quickly. And if you don't take them, they eat your lunch or breakfast, and very soon
Yeah,
they don't.
that's very true. So, to be honest, just data pipes is not what telcos do now. I mean, if you actually go large telcos, they invest a lot of effort and energy in creating digital solutions for their customers. So for example, I can talk about XLR.
Have you been with the phone company and been with them 20 years?
No, I've been with them for 2 years.
Because you have to always out-innovate yourself, don't you?
Right.
So the company that you're with today has to be radically different 5 years ago.
So I would invite you to come to our pavilion. It's on Pizza Hall. You can see very few things about the core tech that we do. You see most of the solutions that we show there are digital solutions because we know that we are able to keep pace, in fact, outpace ourselves in terms of innovating technology to our customers, not just to individual customers, but also to enterprise customers, to governments, to a lot of other stakeholders that we deal with.
Of course.
So in the same way, we are also offering financial services, but in trying to innovate as much as we can with the infrastructure that we have laid down, right, and with the customer base that we have.
I just find it interesting when I look at Vodafone, Singtel, or AT&T. For example, AT&T's big story right now has nothing to do with their pipes, but about their streaming services, about HBO Max, about the theaters, and they have now become the content company because they realize they can't survive just as a phone company anymore, right? And you guys on this outside are the ones that are adding value to them. They have the big bucks to buy you after time because theoretically they're like the Googles. They will acquire to stay in existence. Do you agree?
I agree. And some of our portfolio companies are looking in that direction. I guess you guys heard the big Stripe acquisition of FaceApp to enter into Africa. You heard about Network International from here, bought DPO. It's a payment platform in Kenya, operating out of Kenya, looking at Africa, to enter the market. So you're going to see some of these strategic M&As coming out, and for us to find this one of exit route as we get into these companies. And so these guys have to innovate, or they have to buy innovation in some cases.
Absolutely.
And tomorrow I'll be doing a keynote at the African Investment Forum. They are some of
That would be awesome.
well, you better be there. But this information that we're seeing, the antithesis of this is that Africa is the biggest market in the 21st century. And I laid out for you today, there is probably about 1.5 billion Africans. Out of that, 70% is below 21 years. According to the United States nations, Africa's population is going to quadruple in the next 2 decades. Which means that in the next 2 decades, every one person, Africa will constitute 1/4 of global population. So Africa is going to be the biggest market in Africa, in the world. The second important fact is that Africa's population is going to overtake Asia in this 21st century. So Africa is really going to be the biggest market.
But the challenge is giving them access to currency.
Correct. And that currency is mobile. In Africa, people don't have computers. This is a computer in Africa. Every person has it. Actually, mobile access in Africa
At a prepaid level.
At a prepaid level. And that's a good thing because people are already prepaying to use it. Right? So they really give you the money ahead, even before they talk on the phone. So you have a very captive market. If you're telco, you have a captive market. And so for him, he is still very relevant. And what is it is right. You have to just keep people busy because you have that captive. But if you don't, the startups innovate to those markets, right? So you have a leg up, in a manner of speaking, as being a telco because that's the platform with all the youngest stuff.
So why'd you move here? You should have moved to Lagos. Big opportunity.
Well, so I mean, look, I looked at the GCC. I see very similar stats to what my colleague has said, right? 40% of the population here are millennials or are millennials. It's a very young population. It's very technical. It's very technologically savvy, right? Everyone has a mobile phone. But payments here are really far behind. The fact that 80% prior to COVID, 80% of all online transactions were still being done on cash on delivery. That doesn't make sense for such a technologically advanced region where people have smartphones. The fact that they're still dealing with cash on delivery. The craziest consumer journey I've ever heard of was when you would order something online, pay for it on cash on delivery, but in order to pay the cash, you have to drive to a kiosk to deposit the cash to then get the good online. That doesn't make sense.
How do you fix that?
So you fix that because, well, frankly, I think the pandemic was a huge accelerant for the digitization of payments. Massive. And it was a huge accelerant for e-commerce, right? The fact of the matter is that the evolution of e-commerce here is not too dissimilar to the evolution that happened in the US or in Europe, right? You started off, if you go back to the 1980s in the US, cash on delivery was a thing because that's when the internet was coming up. No one trusted merchants online, right? Now, you do. If you want your toothpaste, right? You order it on your phone, right? And it gets delivered to the house, and it does so with credit cards.
So let me ask that.
Right.
Moving forward,
Right.
will it be the Amazons and Facebooks of the world that will be that place where there's currency? Will it be a Facebook type of token? Will it be an Amazon type of credit?
I think that there's specific, so all the big tech companies, right? By the way, in my experience, even the big tech companies, rather than really innovating out of their core, they acquire, right? Like that's basically that's the way that they do it. Because in fact, they're very good at what they do in their core, but when you start talking about fringes outside, it's very difficult for a large organization such as Google to have who's
Google doesn't innovate, they buy.
they buy, right?
Yes.
That's the same thing with Facebook. Let's say that's true for Facebook. That's true for Amazon as well.
Same thing for tacos.
Amazon bought Facebook, right? Like,
Absolutely.
They could have. It has all the money in the world. They could have started.
So that's what I'm saying. Will the incumbents being of Apple, no, that's not Apple, let's go more with Amazon and Facebook, will they become the next generation currency?
Indeed, they're already trying to move in that direction, right? They're with Libra, for example, right? They're already trying to move that direction. In fact, if you go into China, right, you see something like WeChat, right? Like a super app, like that's what they want to get to, right? If you kind of want to like look at the future, great thing to do, look at China. Like China's so far ahead as far as
Well, but China just came out with the digital yuan, so it's moving in that direction.
Exactly. It's moving in that everything, the digitization, when you actually think about cash as a technology, cash as a technology had not really evolved since ancient Babylon. We had coins and not necessarily notes, but we had coins back then, right? So when you're talking about the digitization of currency, you're effectively talking about the evolution of cash to its next step, right?
Here's what I do. We literally have 4 minutes left. It goes fast.
Sure.
I had a relationship that fast with this one. It's nice. I want you, in about a minute, tell us where your businesses or your sector will be in 1 year. In 1 year, pontificate moving forward. Go ahead.
Sure. So in 1 year, my sector is going to be, you're going to see a shift, basically the way that cash works right now, or currency works right now in this region is still about 60% cash, 40% digital. That's going to flip 1 year.
A year from now, we'll
Okay,
put on that.
because of the fact that the pandemic is not going away, right? Cash is one easy way for money to be spread. People are increasingly starting to embrace digital technology. The acceleration has been pretty spectacular to witness.
I mean, you're really going aggressive saying in 1 year flips. Okay?
I mean, well, okay, how about this? When I landed here, online sales constituted about 1% or 2% of retail. By the time, right now, online sales in the UAE alone is about 19%.
Because of COVID.
Because of COVID.
Yeah, because of COVID.
If I would have told you that in January,
You're right, of course. But you need a pandemic to keep up with
you need a
it.
pandemic. That's what happened.
Tell us about your market sector.
Yeah, so 1 year from now, I see even deeper usage and a lot of use cases of AI and machine learning that we enable for a lot of our customers and also as part of our services. We see a number of use cases for 5G because that's the next big thing in the tech growth, and it enables a lot of new things that we were earlier not able to do. We see a lot of contactless and self-service shopping concepts being introduced, and we are working a lot on
Because of COVID.
because of COVID, it has been got accelerated, and we've got a lot of acceptance from retailers as well as end consumers for things that they were not that open earlier. For example, facial recognition. 1 year ago, it was very difficult for a retailer to offer it as a method of payment, for example, because of privacy and a lot of other issues that people thought of. Today, customers are asking for it. Consumers are asking, okay, why do I have to tap card? So we see a lot of demand from the market for those kind of solutions, and we see 1 year down the line a lot of use cases and implementations of these kind of solutions in the market.
Thank you. Eric, finish us up.
Yeah, so I agree with Iyad that we're going to see this flip sooner than we thought because of the pandemic. Our research shows that in Africa it's actually around 20-21%. And so you're going to see this net positive move for Africa. And in our view, as we go beyond in here, you're going to see a lot of innovative companies that telcos and big amount of investment companies that are acquiring the continent. And that's going to create this new dynamic for a lot of what we call the third generation tech entrepreneurs to basically now get rewarded for what they've done. And that will create a new cycle, new money going into startups and tech, and that will create the momentum that is needed to build some of the next big companies. I however think that you will not only see the big Amazons and Apples, as you mentioned, but you're going to see some new players, very active new players. Some of them may not necessarily be acquired, and they become very big competitors to these guys.
Well, how many just unicorns have been created in the last 12 months because of COVID? We are very excited space. Gentlemen, thank you so much for sharing time with us.
Thank you so much.
Please give a warm hand to them, sharing time. And guys, thanks a lot. We're going to have 5 more minutes, and then when we come back, we'll do another panel. Thank you very much.